Checking in once again with the Quincy City Council President Ann Mahoney to get an update on the most recent City Council meeting. Hi, Ann. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you doing?
Enjoying this gorgeous weather we're having here.
I
It
know it's beautiful. Yeah.
really is. We should do this outside, I think.
Yeah, I think we should. I just came home from a wedding in New Hampshire and it was so hot Friday night, but Saturday was beautiful. And I know you had a beautiful day here in Quincy too for Flag Day, but it was a pretty special weekend for the Mahoney family. So not any of my kids, but one of my nephews got married. It was really exciting.
Ah, very nice. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations. Excellent. Nice thing to do was spend time with family for sure.
absolutely. It was a great weekend. Yeah.
Now on to the issue at hand. The
Mhm.
appropriation for the potential purchase of Eastern Nazarene College was on the agenda last night.
It was on the agenda last night, and we did meet last week as well on Thursday just to have a second meeting. I think it was like a second or third meeting. I can't remember, but it was on the agenda last night, and Mr. Walker got to speak in regards to it, and we all everybody had a chance to speak and give their opinions of it. My concern is not whether the property has value, but most people would agree that this is a unique property and it has a significant amount of potential. But the real concern is the financial impact and the financials that were presented to the administration, to the city council. We asked for a draft. I mean, we asked for the 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 debt specialist to come in and speak to us in regards to how much debt. We found out back in late March, early April that we thought we had 1.6, but we had 1.8. And now after this past week, and when I was looking at a Hilltop Securities June 30th, 2025 report, we actually have $2 billion in debt committed to the city of Quincy. That means there's 200 that still has it's been committed. They haven't spent it yet, but there's 200 million still waiting to be spent. And it wasn't, this is where I think people are saying, oh, you just keep saying that number, but that number is huge. And we don't, when we ask for the debt to be presented to us, we're not looking to say that Quincy has flexibility. We're looking to say, what do we have going on? What do we have to prepare for? And can we afford any more? And we've had two credit downgrades. We've had Bloomberg, a national news cycle, pick up that we are the highest debt of the South Shore, really the highest state in the state of Massachusetts. And there's very critical eye watches for us to be able to rebuild our reserves and to rebuild certain things. And it's been going on like that for years. So my concern mostly is that debt. And although something is a once in a lifetime opportunity, you have to be able to afford those opportunities in life. And I can't just straddle the future Quincy residents with this type of debt. We need to get our arms around it. So, it did not pass last night. I don't believe that means to me, it doesn't mean the conversation's completely over. It just means that this conversation's over. There's opportunities to go back to ENC and talk to them if the administration so desires to want to. I will say that there's some frustration on some of the city councilors that they feel as though that we talk about collaboration all the time, and there is not really a lot of collaboration. We're being told from a podium or by the Chris Walker what's coming down the pike, but there's not a lot of conversations. The mayor's not calling anybody or talking to anybody, and that's different. He used to talk to everybody on a regular basis, not necessarily me, but he did talk. I knew he talked to many of the other councilors, so it's definitely not collaborative right now, and I would like it to be collaborative. I mean, I did mention that if we were to sell the Monroe building, I probably could get behind it even better. But what I mean by that is the assets they were bringing to us, the Messina property, they took off the table, as it should not have been on the table in the first place because it was not going to raise any money, and they put another one on the table, which was Seville Ave, which is assessed for $411,000. So it's actually less than they were going to be able to bring in before. And this is all with the assumptions that everything's going to be 100%. So those are where our concerns lie. Those are where my concerns lie. And I just feel as though we also asked for a capital improvement plan. They gave it to us last Friday. So we're asking for things, we're not getting it, but we're being asked to trust and to go ahead and make this decision. And if we had gone ahead, this is just my personal opinion, if we had gone ahead, $22.5 million, whether it's 5 million that they have to bond or whether it's the whole thing, is just the beginning of the next one that's going to come in at $100 million or something else that we're going to have to keep investing in to be able to get these properties ready for sale or anything else we have to do. That's where my concern lies, that it's not the first part of the purchase, it's the extraordinary costs that come after you own it.
So does the city council have any control now over the property?
Nope, we don't have any. The city council has no control of the property, and neither does the administration. There's things that you can do. We can, definitely, the mayor talked about doing an overlay in that area. Back when I was in the council, it never got voted through. So there is no overlay in that area right now. I think he spoke as though was never voted on for a 55 and older. Can't really vote on a 55 and older when you don't, when it's not for sale. But second thing is, we can put restrictions on it. We can put a PUD around it, change the word, the way the variances work for a PUD and make it something that has to come back before the council to hold people accountable. There are many things we can do, but we didn't set the date. The administration says ENC set the date. We didn't set the date. It was set, and there was no consideration for what our needs were on the council to be able to get to. Yes, I think we were pretty articulate about what we needed to see. And, and again, this is what I mean about a conversation. No conversations were had. We just get an email right before a meeting telling us Messina's off and Seville is on. And many people didn't even catch that until the meeting. They were like, we didn't even know. They thought it was additional to, and it's not. It was not additional to. So I think that's where things are really we're kind of off balance, because there's 80 properties that the city has purchased over the course of the last 10 years. And Seville was one of the ones that they came back with. And there's other things that we could do. And if this is something we really wanted to do, we need to find a way to be able to not just buy ENC, but also settle the nerves of a lot of people who, want us to start tackling that debt. And I would say that I know a lot of people were saying they weren't getting any negatives about ENC, just positives. That's true. I got a lot of pro ENCs, but I got a lot of, debt issues that people were bringing to us. And even last night when we had the open forum, it was not 100% ENC. There were people that lived in the neighborhood that were thanking us for, staying strong. And there were people that came up and just spoke in general about the debt. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody's opinions of those, but there's a lot of opinions out there, and we are listening. I know that there's this urge to say that we're just not listening to everybody. We only listen to the people who tell us whatever they're telling us. I listen to everybody. So I'm happy to say that I have no problem. I listen to people. I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. I'm able to listen and to be able to put into, to be able to programmatically figure out which is the best, pragmatically look at things and be able to try to put our best foot forward. This is strictly, when you're looking at it, as far as I'm concerned, it's a finance package that just isn't gonna, it just didn't pass. And with our other ways to do it, sure, come back with a better plan. They'll have more time to do that. They actually had 2 years, to tell you the truth. It was 2 years ago that the mayor announced he wanted an overlay in ENC. So we really had plenty of time to have this prepared. So to say they didn't have a lot of time to do it is also not, this is what I mean. This is where it's just not, we need to work together on that, and we're not. So.
Okay, so the vote was 6-3 in finance, and then again in the full council meeting, is that
Yep,
right?
in the full council meeting, we did take up that vote again, just to make it a clean, we cleanly voted on it and took it out of committee, so that the next one, if there was something to come back, it'll be a new proposal, hopefully.
Okay, because it would have needed 2/3, is that right, to pass?
Yeah, needed 2/3, yeah. So really, they only needed, if 4 people voted against it, it wouldn't have passed either. So
Right.
And again, everybody's looking at these in their own lenses. All of the councils are looking in their own lenses. I think people very much articulated where they felt, where they stood, and why they were voting that way.
Okay, very good. And then on to the full council meeting.
Yep, on the full council meeting,
Yep.
we had, I want to start with some positives. We had 2 recognitions last night. The first one highlighted was recognizing Chef Lawrence Louie, the owner of Rovato in Quincy. And he's the runner-up of Bravo's Top Chef, which is one of the most prestigious culinary competitions in the country, which I have to say I am a fan of, and I did watch it. And he also previously beat Bobby Flay in Chopped, which again, if you're a cooking channel fan and you know all of these shows, my husband's not. He's the gardener, and I like to watch the cooking shows. So I was very intrigued. I was sad that he didn't win. It was great to watch him. If you haven't been to his restaurant, you have to go. It is delicious. And it was just exciting to have, that attention brought to, really what I would say is he's a gentleman. He's gentle. He's incredibly talented. And his imagination, when you watch them on these shows, I just am blown away by it's another form of art as far as I'm concerned. I prefer to eat, I don't cook like that, but I definitely enjoy watching people create things like that. So it was exciting. And then we also had the Girl Scouts in front of us, and an opportunity to honor several of the Girl Scouts and their leaders. And shout out to Gail Spring, because she was forgotten about for a second last night. She was like, I was only Gail for the longest time. But, it was great to see all the leaders. They're doing a great job with these young ladies. The four young ladies that were, I think they had bronze in the Girl Scouts, and they came up and they were speaking. I said, "Who are all the little girls?" And they're like, "They're our siblings, but this is about us." And I thought they were so cute. They were just very excited to be there. And it's always nice to have both the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, or any of the Scouts, any of the kids that do something. It just kind of lifts you up, because they do work really hard for those things, and they are, as far as I'm concerned, those future leaders of our, of our whatever they want to do, because they work pretty hard on the things that they do in Scouts. So I just wanted to mention that too. And then we moved
Very
on to
nice.
open forum. And in open forum, we did share that we'll have two more special council meetings. There'll be no open forums in that, because they're special meetings, and then we'll be back to open forum in the fall. I did basically ask that everybody be signed onto the papers last night, just because there was a lot of people in the room, and it takes a while to get through them. We're not complaining at all, because this is something that I did put on there. But and these were big topics, the topics that we were having. I'm certainly not going to say to somebody in a big topic thing, you can't speak, but they'll have no open forum over the summer, so we'll come back in September. It wasn't just strictly EMC. We definitely had some of the early intervention parents were back. I think they were feeling very disparaged by the sanctioned Facebook page that's what I've come to call it, the sanctioned Facebook page, that, seems to be very adult one-sided. If you're not, if you don't agree with them, they kick you off. I can't see any of the things they're saying, but they were saying some pretty rough things about these parents, that they were basically being puppets for people. And there were two parents that got up and basically said that they don't need to, they can speak for themselves, and they're not puppets. And they just were explaining the destitute they feel for their kids, because of they're being moved out of a building that's very much created for the environment of what these children need, and being put into an office park. It's not really going to work, and they're entitled to come up and speak about that. And they are begging for a meeting with Mayor Koch, and I'm hoping Mayor Koch does give them a meeting. But that's in his court. So from there, we moved on to the open meeting law complaints. We had 4 open meeting law complaints. This became one of the most detailed discussions of the evening. So we did have the council reviewed the facts. We discussed the applicable standards underneath the law. We heard a variety of viewpoints. We had Mr. Timmons come up and revealed another part. So just to back up for a second, it was, I'm going to forget the date it was, but it was back in May. It was an ordinance meeting. They were talking, I think it was about the raises, and there was this discussion going back and forth. And I think Councilor McGee mentioned the fact that she talks to a lawyer, and Jim Timmons called out, from the podium, that she was breaking open meeting law, which is it was just it just felt strange. Everything felt strange about that night. And from there, like the next day or two, we were getting open meeting law violations that basically say, we want the name of your lawyer, your secret squirrel club, or whatever. I'm not sure really what. It was just a lot of things that came in. And Maggie had reached out to the Attorney General herself, because of course it was about her, so she was feeling a little like, did I do something wrong, kind of thing. And she didn't. And open meeting is really about a quorum. It's about talking in a quorum. It's about discussing business that's on the agenda that hasn't been discussed in public. If something has been discussed in public, we can talk about any of those things to anybody. If it hasn't been discussed in public, or it's highly sensitive, we cannot. That's the rules of being a counselor. And what we can't do is we can't meet as a quorum and discuss what our votes are going to be. And a quorum would be, for a city council the size of 9 is 5. So anytime there's 5 counselors together, they really shouldn't be talking. And if you have public meetings, I've said this in the past, I know Councilor Yang used to always say, I can't, so they asked us questions in a public meeting, but I can't speak because, we will be breaking open meeting law that wasn't posted. That's not true. We can't speak to each other. We can have our own opinions for things. And so long as we're not basing things like standing up and saying, I'm totally against this, you can say what you feel about something, but you have to be balanced in what you're talking about. So what happened last night is the city solicitor Timmons got up and started speaking about an email. Now, the email was never brought up in the last meeting. It was just that she was talking to the lawyer. It was all about getting the lawyer's name and talking to the lawyer, and you broke open meeting law. And I think next day we got the open meeting law violations. Then there was, I guess, a Freedom of Information Act looking for any emails or texts or whatever from Maggie to City Solicitor Timmons, and those got out, which was Timmons asking for Maggie to, to give up the name of her lawyer, and she asked, "What law did I break?" And it's basic about. It seemed to me that those should have been confidential. The city solicitor works for the city, works for all of us. Had a conversation with the counselor about something and released these, and those are all over Facebook too. And again, they're looking from the surface of things. It was all about she's not giving up this name, and she has to. She does not have to. It's not part of it. I never spoke to the attorney. Nobody, as far as I asked that question last night, nobody spoke to the attorney. We didn't have emails. There was no correspondence. There is nothing there. So Mr. Timmons brought up an email that Maggie had sent in with a red line version that was to be sent out to all of us through Jen, and Mr. Ash, Counselor Ash, actually brought it up and said he looked it up on his phone and he said it looks like she sent it to Jen. Jen sent it out to all of us. That's how we do it. Like, you're changing something, I'll send out a red line to let people know, like, this is what's being changed. He was suggesting that he didn't know who helped her write that. Again, it doesn't matter. So nobody violated anything. And even, it was Councilor DeBona who asked Mr. Timmons to come up and speak. And at the end, Councilor DeBona was like, but if nobody replies, then it's not an open meeting law violation. So interestingly enough, this is where we're standing. And, Mr. City Solicitor Timmons was coming up going, well, I don't know if her attorney's Morgan and Morgan, like, I don't know what their specialty is. And it seemed a little odd. I did say, it's not, that to me wasn't professional either. So it's just my opinion. Like, there's no need to exchange these types of things. It was what it is. But I will say it was a thorough discussion, and Councilor Bono was right. This council's getting, a lot of open meeting law complaints. And again, I go back to that sanctioned Facebook page that is, it's a whistle saying anytime happens, this is what you need to do, send them all out. And send them a violation. They're all violating everything. They're talking behind it. None of this is happening. It's just it's a conspiracy in the making. And, that's what happens. And that's how conspiracy starts. But, we're doing the business that the people elected us to do. We are listening to everybody and we are talking to people. And if we're not allowed to talk to people, then everything has to be discussed in open public. And that's not how this works. I can talk to you, Joe. Somebody might say she's breaking open meeting law. She's talking about something. No, we're not. So in the end, there was a vote for me, the council president, to take the words of the council, which was that there was no violation, and send it back to the attorney general and the 4 complainants. It will be all sent as one email to all 4 plus the attorney general, and I'll get that taken care of by end of day today.
Okay, and it's up to the Attorney General to make the final ruling, is that right?
Yep. So the Attorney General has the opportunity to make the final rulings. Sorry about that. So the Attorney General has the opportunity to make the final ruling, and I think, and I'm going to draw a blank this because I haven't gone this far. This hasn't happened. After 30 days, I think they can appeal, and it goes down that road. But
okay.
But again, several, I will say it wasn't just Councillor McGee who called. I also called the Attorney General's office because it just seems like, when does it become like there seems to be regular things coming in? I said, when does it become like, that it seems more serial than it does? It's not that I don't want to respond to everybody, but it seems like there's a lot of this happening, and hey, that's the way it works. You can ask for anything. But I will say some people are getting things much faster than others. I've known people waiting for information from City Hall for years to get information out of it. But this information is flowing pretty fast. And that's why I think it's relatively interesting. I'm not saying, anything's happening there, but it does seem to get out of City Hall fast. So this is not in the spirit of collaboration. That's what I would say.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. So then we moved on to the remainder of the meeting was basically was really transferring of funds. And there were some questions in regards to that. So we had several, I don't actually have my agenda right in front of me. We definitely had some transfer of funds. And, this is the first time any of the people that are in the council are having transfers. They were asking some questions. I will say, Director Della Barbara was up at the microphone, and it is a tool that is used in all towns and cities at the end of the year, because we do have to zero out the budgets, meaning if there's any negative balances, we can't have those. Because if you do go to the DLS when you post up your final numbers for fiscal year 26, and if there's any negatives, they're going to take that from your free cash right away. So the goal is to clean up everything, and the transfers help clean things up. So there were a lot of transfers. And what I will say is I noticed a few things which seemed a little strange, nothing major, like basically the firefighters have a lot of money every year that have to be transferred. I think the police do too for overtime, and it seems to be a regular thing. So what we really should be doing is this something we should build into the budget so that we don't have to do the transfers at the end? Because if you have too much in the end, then guess what? The transfer will be coming from the police to someplace else. So that's the goal of any budget, is to make sure that it's not, you have so much money you can transfer all over the place at the end of the year, or that you have to slow down because you know that this is going to be a big negative, and now you have to go to other departments and say, is there any way we could slow down your pace of spending because we're going to need X amount of money? That's a perfectly normal thing. And I asked Director Della Barbara, do you look at your expenses every month? And he was like, yep. And I said, that's how you keep track of it. That's the job of the chief financial officer, to make sure that everything's balancing out at the end of the day. I did ask for a line by line detail because they do show you who it's coming from, but it's more interesting to find out what line it's coming from, because that's where you can go back to as a budget and kind of say, next year when they're doing the budget, you can look at it and say, is that this is an area that you had a lot of money in last year and we got to transfer it out. And that's the type of work that we have to do. So, and those are the questions that were asked. But I think it was a good discussion. There were a couple of things for CPA that got transferred. There was one thing that got held up because it wasn't enough money in the account and we'll do that Wednesday night. But for the most part, I think it was all, buttoned up by the end of the night. We were done by like 10:30, 10:40 last night. So, and I have to say, I was glad that we didn't go past 11. So, but it was,
Okay.
and we do have two more city, like I will say this is our business isn't done because we have to have, normally last night would have been the night that we voted on the budget, but we'll have a meeting Wednesday night and we'll vote on that budget Wednesday night. And then we'll have a final meeting on Monday. So the budget finance Wednesday night will be the final few departments, and any departments that have to come back will be Wednesday night. Then we'll get to the vote for the budget. And then on Monday night, I think there's two oversight meetings. One is in regards to the COA director, Mr. Clasby, because his rulings did come out. I think tomorrow he'll be sentenced. So that's something that was brought in by Councillor Riley. She was asking to have that before we break for the summer. And then also Councillor Councillor Jacobs had two orders that she came in last night. I think it was for appointments, just understanding how appointments are working, mostly for the senior housing. And then we're going to have an oversight meeting as well. And that oversight meeting, I believe, is going to be, revolve around the raises. And then we're going to have a council meeting in case anything needs to be voted out of committee. And then that will be the last meeting for the first 6 months. And it's been a fast 6 months, Joe. I mean, it's a blink of the eye and 6 months is gone.
Very much so, yes. Okay, so you and I will catch up 2 more times before the end of the council session.
We will. And hopefully the weather will stay just as beautiful as it has been.
That would be nice, yes. Thanks for the update, Ann. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day.